Oh god, the chat. Alright. How's that look on your guys' end? Can you see it okay? Can you see the list? Good. Okay. Spoiler free. I would say yes. Relatively spoiler free. You guys did a really good job at that. I know it was probably very tempting to tell me where to go and stuff like that sometimes, but thank you so much for that. Music rating. I really enjoyed the music. It had that Western atmosphere to it and things like that. But like I've been finding with a lot of games lately, I feel like anytime a game throws a crap ton of dungeons at you, you're subject to... Oh, hold on. You guys can't see what I'm looking at. Why does it look like that? Hold on. Why won't this work? Hold on. I think I figured it out. Alright, that should be better. Hopefully you guys can actually see it now without it being an issue. Oh, come on. Why is it doing this? I never had this trouble before, but... Alright. That should hopefully fix it now. Okay, sorry. Does everything look good? Can you guys see it okay? Alright, so music rating, as I was saying, I really enjoyed the music in the game. It was very atmospheric, and that's one of my favorite types of music, when music feels like it was created for a game. And I think that this game really went above and beyond with that. But the problem with this game is that there was so many dungeons and so much time spent on the map and things like that, that you were hearing a lot of the same themes again. But it did have a really good OST, and it did have a lot of songs. I was just taking a long time to find areas, but there was a lot of dungeons. Either way, although I feel some tracks were overplayed, I really enjoyed the songs. This final boss battle theme was great. I enjoyed it. It's got that Western feel to it, even though you're not in like a Western-oriented area at the time. I'm gonna go ahead and give it an 8. I really enjoy the music. It's something that I could take a lot of songs from and listen to later on. That was probably, the OST is probably one of my favorite parts. I love the graphics in this game as well. I love that whole, like, drawn aspect, but not drawn at the same time. The 3D, but with, like, the, almost like crayons or something like that. Like, it was just colored. I just really liked it. Like, I don't know what more to say other than that. The whole aesthetic of the game was really good looking to me. I wish more games would do something like that, or if there were more games at the time. That semi-cel shaded type thing. And the character animations and stuff like that were really good as well. The only thing is the characters didn't show too much emotion in the actual characters themselves. That was in the portraits that were down at the bottom. Dungeon designs and stuff like that were okay. Like, the game, other than that type of stuff, was very similar almost everywhere. All the towns and dungeons and stuff like that were very similar. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it a 7. It gets a lot of points from the fact that I love how it looked, but other than the character designs and stuff like that, there wasn't a whole lot going on with it. Alright, so the story, let me turn this down a little bit so I'm not speaking over it in my brain. Alright, so the story, I wasn't the biggest fan of the story. It definitely started picking up a lot more later on, which was great. The only problem with that is I think it took way too long to get started. This music that's playing right now, that you get that anime cutscene in the beginning, I feel like there was more, like, character depth in that animation than there was in the game. If I was supposed to feel more attached to the characters as being like a group as through doing stuff together based on just the dungeons and stuff like that we went through, you don't get that. They had the occasional talking back and forth and stuff like that and sharing stuff amongst each other and learning about each other by going through the game, but just how you come across doing it and things like that, it's hard for me to like think of the little simple moments like them all sitting around a fire eating together and things like that, or you know, like in the anime cutscene where he's covering her from like the sandstorm and things like that. That's the type of stuff that builds depth with characters. And this game was literally go to a dungeon, beat a dungeon, potentially get nothing from the dungeon, then a little bit of story dialogue, and then go to a town and get a little bit of story dialogue from that and things like that. That was literally the game, and I didn't like how it was told. You had so many fights with the same characters and things like that, and like the bosses and stuff like that were not substantial in any way, shape, or form. There was some substance to the characters overall, but I have to say that honestly, actually changes as you progress through the game. I think there's like 5 of them. I did not notice that. I did watch them a few times. I would say that the story was probably the weakest part of this game, by far. And just how they structured it all together, trying to like make you feel for Janice and stuff like that by making you fight him 50 times, then fighting Maya's group 50 times and things like that. It was definitely my least favorite aspect of the game. It did pick up the last 10 hours or so, but I'm gonna go ahead and give that a 5. It wasn't bad by any means, and hopefully you guys don't think I'm trashing it or anything, but I feel like a majority of the game really lacked story. It was just literally run to a dungeon, do next to nothing, maybe get something new. Most of the time you don't, or it gets taken away from you, and you were fighting the same mobs over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Alright, the mechanics rating. So I enjoyed the combat. I enjoyed the combat a lot, other than the fact that it took forever half the time. Between watching the characters run around and doing their attack animations and things like that, I did really enjoy the combat. I enjoyed the fact that they implemented a system for you to be able to skip battles, but I feel like if you go through the game quickly, you get to a point where that barely matters anymore. You're using close to 15 points or more, and you've got 30. Of course, maybe there's more items and stuff like that I could have found to increase it, but I feel like that gauge became basically pointless later on. The only thing that it was good for was lower level enemies. That's it. Which I guess is supposed to make sense, but if you're going to do something like that, give me a method of escaping fights if I don't want to fight them. If there's an enemy that has 20,000 HP that gives barely any experience when I could be fighting stuff instead that's like got 5,000 HP but gives decent experience, why would I want to fight the 20k HP thing? There's no reason for it. And requiring an ability to use, the escape ability that failed for me 90% of the time to get out was just really annoying. But that being said, I feel like there is a lot of depth in this game in how you level up your characters, what you use on them, how you level up their weapons and things like that. Even though a lot of it's not really well explained and you can get through the game without it, there's a lot that you can do with your characters. And I feel like overall, it's a really in-depth system that I didn't go too much into, or as much into as I could have. So it definitely gets some credit there. But we gotta go with the mechanics of like the puzzle solving and stuff like that. I enjoyed the puzzles, but I feel like some of them were designed very, very poorly in the sense giving you very little space, and then the fact that you could fall off edges on them. One of the puzzles that I had to do, I had been pressing the X button to do everything in the game up until that point, except for using special items. But to push this particular block, to push this particular thing, you needed to use the square button. So I spent an hour and a half trying to solve this puzzle, doing exactly what I knew I had to do, but I did not know that I had to use square to push it this time around rather than pressing X or everything else that I had done. So it was just weird. And that was the ice block puzzle. And then you had the puzzle at the end there where I was picking up the blocks and I could easily fall off the edge because when you're trying to grab something, sometimes your character would dash instead, and you're on this little area. But the puzzles overall were fun and they were interesting. Some of them might have been overused a little bit. When you blow up a set of blocks that are in front of you and that's all you do, having like 15 rooms like that in the same dungeon is just a little bit silly. You probably finished with a much lower migrant level than average player. Also, I really enjoy how the game lets you change your entire setup from turn to turn. You can change your setup. That's something that I thought I tried to do but couldn't. So that's something that I should look into as well. Like I said, the combat, although the combat's really long and drawn out, in my opinion, I feel like the combat's very in-depth, way more than a lot of JRPGs. It gives you a lot of optionality, and it's really interesting. It's a lot of fun. That being said, though, you're fighting a lot of the same bosses constantly. So you're going and fighting a group of 3 enemies that you fought 15 times, and maybe they've got a new attack or something like that they do. And that's it. And then you get to like the bosses and stuff, and you could literally use the same strategy to take out every boss until you got to the gimmicky bosses where I can only be hit on a certain turn, or you have to use this specific spell to be able to hit me and stuff like that. And it's cool to an extent, but sometimes it's just a little, you know, to me, uninteresting. And I feel like there was a lot of bosses like that in this game where you had to use one ability on it to be able to hit it, and it just made the boss cake after that. Too easy. What was the point of that? But can you guys at least agree with me that they redid way too many battles in this game? That fighting the groups of the, like, Janice's group and Maya's group and stuff like that, and some of the other bosses that you were fighting constantly again and again and again did not add to the story at all. If anything, it made me dread the combat system because I was just sick of doing the same fights over and over and over again. It became uninteresting to me. And that's my approach with it. But I gotta give the credits some, you know, I need to give it credit where credit was due, and even though I did not explore it, I feel like it was kind of unintuitive at all the stuff that you could do in this game, and you really had to go out of your way to figure some of it out, but it was still there. So I'm going to go ahead and give that a 7. Yes, the structure of the game was a little bit too drawn on and repetitive, overall in my opinion. Alright, so, the grinding rating. I don't really know what to say about this. I felt like there was going to be the ability to skip battles, which was something that I was excited for, because I'm not a big fan of grinding. However, if I find a place that I can grind and get decent experience or money or something like that, and it doesn't take too long, I will do it. I'm not above that. I'm not. But this game, most battles were pretty long, and the battles that were short didn't really yield any experience unless you either had the experience buff, proc some skills, or had the lucky cards that you could use as well. There were some exceptions, there were some easier fights and things like that, but overall, it's just so many fights when you're trying to solve puzzles and to get through an area. You can't skip anything, you can't run away from them. It was just too much for me. Way too much for me. And when you're playing a game for 50 hours and you're fighting some of the same mobs in a dungeon, like when a dungeon was literally using 2 mobs, but it would be in like different groups, like maybe 3 of the same, 2 of one and 1 of another, or something like that, it just got really, really, really boring. I honestly got to the point where the only thing I was interested in was upgrading my weapon. And again, that might be my opinion, but there was just way too much battles and stuff like that in this game that you didn't have control of. That's pretty crazy. 5 level ups every time. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that this was even a little bit worse than Bot and Kaitos in my point of view. The grinding, the amount of fights that you have to fight in this game is just way too much, and that might be because I wasn't as high of a level as I need to be, or I wasn't as like progressed throughout the game and did like right strategies for fights and stuff like that, so I made them take longer. So I'm gonna go ahead and give that a 5. And so that puts it at my overall rating. What I feel about this game is that it has a lot of strong points, but overall to me it's pretty mediocre in most aspects. And anywhere where it shined, I felt like it got so repetitive that that shine just wore off for me. I just wasn't as interested in it anymore. And it was a little bit frustrating in that regard, because when I started playing the game, I was really enjoying it. But then it just started to feel like it was dragging on. You finish a dungeon in less than 5 minutes, and then you literally go through, get absolutely nothing from it, start another dungeon, get through it in 5-10 minutes, and things like that. I used the Mystic a lot, but not with gems or anything like that. Did it start? I'm not I'm not sure what you're talking about. Did what start? But overall, I feel like the game had a lot of stuff going on for it. I would have liked it maybe if I could have beaten it in about 30 hours, maybe about 35 or so. And if the story just had a little bit more, like, of the characters. It's like you're supposed to assume everything that's going on between the dungeons and the towns and stuff like that between the characters. And it would have been nice to just have a couple scenes that were more than just talking about where they're going next, or just learning about someone's past or something like that. I would have liked to see a little bit more between the characters. But there were some fun characters, there were some interesting characters, there were some times that I laughed at the game, there were some times that it kind of blew my mind. But, like, between the main antagonist changing constantly into becoming this, like, random thing that came out of some library archives and stuff like that just want a world of their own, that after they were destroyed were kind of like, that's okay, you know, it's okay, it's your world type of thing. It's like, I don't know, the whole justice approach and things like that, I just wasn't as attached to this game as I was at the start, and part of that might have been because of the stuff that dragged on and things like that. But I did enjoy the game, despite what I'm saying and things like that, or despite how it might sound, I did enjoy the game. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this is a 7 for me. And let me see what you guys voted here. I gotta average your guys' scores here. 42, 52. Wow, we have a lot of votes tonight. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it when you guys vote for it. Yeah, if you guys haven't voted already, I highly recommend it. I did like this theme. I did really like the music in this game. I did. That was definitely a highlight for me. Absolutely a highlight for me. Alright, and how many votes we got here? 12, 13, 16, 17, 18, 19. It looks like you guys are pretty on par with me. I see 6.8 altogether, so we're gonna round that up to a 7 as well. So I think, for the most part, you guys agree with me. It's definitely a very solid RPG. It's not going to be my first go-to game to recommend to somebody or anything like that, but if I had played a whole bunch of RPGs and wanted to experience something new, it's definitely solid and interesting. It's not a game that I think you should play right, you know, day after day after day after day. I think it's something that you, if you take a break from, come back to a day or so later, you would probably enjoy it more. Plus, it's a game that's really catered to exploring and going and doing all this type of stuff together. If you would really enjoy doing that and finding everything and exploring everything, this is definitely the type of game for you, because you're going to get more out of it in that way. Like the ability to farm healing items, which would have been fantastic, and apparently I never did. Yes, it has a lot of content in it. I'm not stating that all of that content is enjoyable or fun or worth it, but it does have a lot of content. Will I replay the game? Most likely not. However, I do want to watch a speedrun of it. Alright, today is, well, it's no longer the 9th. It is now, or no, it's no longer the 8th, rather. 2017, and it took us 49 hours, 59 minutes, and 50 seconds. Fan-freaking-tastic. Where do you do the healing item side quest at? Because I feel like I was talking to basically every character at the start. But maybe one of the things that they asked me to go get them or something like that, I didn't do. Alright, let me get Night Butt ready here. Everybody get hyped for the raffle. As soon as you get your horse? What did I miss then? Alright guys, it is officially raffle time. All you have to do is type in the word raffle. It'll enter you in for a chance to win. Everyone has an equal chance of winning. If you like JRPGs, highly recommend you enter. Even if you lurk, type in the word once, you'll be entered, and then you get to pick a game. Again, I highly recommend, even if you've won before, go ahead and enter again. There's no limit to the amount of times that you can win. You can win multiple times in a row. You can not win for 50 picks. So, definitely enter if there's a game that you would like to see me play. Interesting. McCurdy's about to wake up. But yeah, I'll give you guys a little bit of time and I'll keep talking about it a little bit. Yeah, it's an interesting game. I feel like the game was a bit too long-winded for what you got content story-wise. That was probably my biggest complaint with it. It was just drawn out. A lot of the aspects were just drawn out for me. El Tannen, you gonna enter? I think that's the only person that I don't see on the list so far that's been in chat. Other than that, it looks like you guys are all in here. So I'll wait to see if El Tannen wants to enter yet, and then we will go ahead and... Alright. That looks like that's everybody then. I did enjoy those puzzles other than the fact that you don't get anything out of it. But what about the daily news? Yesterday was Beer Belly Day. Oh, I remember that. And can you get a beer belly from drinking root beer? Alright guys, Thank you so much for sticking around. I know it's been a really late night. I know this is the moment most of you guys have really been waiting for. So I'm going to get right to it. I'm not going to wait any longer. Going to give a little bit of a drum roll here. All right. Good luck, everyone. I wish you all the best of luck. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now I feel bad for telling you to enter. Oh man. That's pretty priceless. It's not a bad word. It's part of another thing, and it's just being banned because of that. I need to fix that. Something I keep forgetting to go back and do. That's impressive. That's pretty impressive, Eltanin. Yeah. I still find it crazy that so many people can enter the raffle and then people that have already won win again. That's impressive. In the meantime, let me fill out some of this stuff here. Let's get this green. I always pick the wrong one, so it must be one lower. Your internet's having a hiccup? It's okay. Take your time. You got plenty of time. Can see words you like in chat. No! We're not doing Dark Cloud 3! No Dark Clouds. No more Dark Clouds. Done with those. No more. Uh-oh, what's the thing, Eltanin? You're not ready for it? I love how Eltanin's like hooking you guys all in. Like everyone's just waiting for him to make his decision. Shut up, buddy. That is not how it works. It is absolutely 100% completely random. Everyone has equal chance. Absolutely equal chance to win. Alright. The hell's that game? It's a game for the Wii. Why is the text white? What the hell? I don't even know where to change the text color on here. What the heck? A game you will not watch? Yeah, you never watch games anyway, Rufia. Well, that's cool. Alright, guys, so that means that the next game we're going to be playing is Legend of the Dragoon, picked by Fidel Infidel. And the game after that will be Fragile Dreams, Farewell Ruins of the Moon. I know nothing about either of them, really. I played a little bit of Legend of the Dragoon. I saw very little of background guys play through. So I'm pretty excited for it. We'll see how it is. But all in all... Oh shit, I just realized that freaking Wild Arms took longer than Baten Kaitos. Jeez. I also did die at the final boss a few times, so I could have definitely beaten it quicker. Longest game still by far is